Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the week of Payday here on the Loadouts live channel, because yes, you read that title right, I have indeed played Payday 3 early, but it doesn't stop there. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming out this week, all surrounding my trip to the Starbreeze offices in Stockholm in Sweden, which is just a crazy thing to even say. And also, I was slightly lying last week. The medical issues cleared up midway through the week and I was in Sweden. I just couldn't tell you. Sorry, that's why there were no videos and why I was 2 days late in the Dev Diary, because I was playing Payday 3 when the Dev Diary dropped, which is a mad thing to say. But in this video, I'm going to go through every single thing I picked up from playing Payday 3. I'm going to go through my base opening thoughts, menu, loadouts, weapons, skills, heists. I literally have a Word document in front of me because I had to list everything down. Stealth, loud, difficulties, progression, additional thoughts, issues I have. There are a few, but nothing too major, and overall concluding thoughts. There is a lot to talk about. I've got no idea how long this video is going to be, and to be honest with you, I don't care, because it's going to be an in-depth analysis of everything Payday 3 related, but it will also include some B-roll footage, because Starbreeze were kind enough to send some footage of both the bank heist loud and stealth and the art gallery in stealth to kind of help me aid my points as I'm talking about certain things. So keep an eye on the video for any bits where I may include some footage, because it's going to be a very cool thing. And just before we get into the main discussion, as you heard me say earlier, I'm going to be calling this the week of Payday here on the Loadouts live channel, because I've got quite a few exciting things to share with you. This time tomorrow, we'll be playing the brand new Crude Awakening heist for Payday 2, which is possibly going to be the final heist we ever see in Payday 2. Wednesday is going to be an interview with the lead producer on Payday 3, Andreas. I sat down with him while I was in the Stockholm office and chatted to him all about Payday 3, having played the game. So that interview with him will be dropping on Wednesday. It's a great one. He's such a lovely guy. There's some really good bits to that, and I can't wait for you all to get your eyes on it. Thursday, I'm going to do a video talking completely about my trip to Stockholm as a whole, going around the Starbreeze offices, meeting people at Starbreeze, meeting just a whole bunch of different creators, the partners, and everyone involved, because there's a whole load of stuff I want to talk about there that I don't want to bog down in this video. And then Friday is something I've been hoping to do for about half a decade now, and I'm not even going to say anything. I'm just going to show you this one teaser and leave it there. I don't know if you want to do anything kind of like jokey intro for the start of this, to like build it up or something. That could be quite funny.
Hello, Heisters.
Is that it? Is that what we asked? Perfect. Job done. Cool. All right. Yeah, you saw that right. Get excited, there's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming this week. Oh, and also, before we get into anything, I just have to give one very, very special shout out. I'm going to do the same thing later on in my Starbreeze vlog later this week, but Elizabeth, Tainted Tally, who works Overkill as the community manager, she arranged all of this stuff to fly us all out as partners to try out the game and just have the most amazing time. She has done phenomenally. I'm not just saying this because she's like a friend of mine or anything like that. I genuinely cannot believe she pulled this thing off. So Starbreeze, do me a favor and give her a raise, because what she managed to pull off for us here to allow us to make videos like this is phenomenal. Do it. Give her the raise now. But let's just get straight into it and talk about all my thoughts on Payday 3. I want to start with a bit of context. First off, us as partners in the Sweden office, and also some partners played online, we all played a build that was about a month old. The main thing that's changed since we played is the HUD. So when you see the B-roll footage shortly, I might put a bit in now just to set context, but the HUD looks different to what I had. The HUD I had was a bit more simplistic, kind of more basic text, that kind of thing, which I quite liked, to be honest, but the HUD, I'm told, is also still something they're building on and working on, so it's not final. I think it says that in the B-roll footage anyway, but they pitched it to us as a move to New York with no backup, no offshore accounts, no nothing. There is no offshore here. You have two currencies in-game that aren't related to the whole microtransaction stuff. You have cash and C-stacks. C-stacks feel very much like your continental coins in this game, but instead of them being something that you earn separate to cash, you buy them with cash, which I kind of think works a bit better, realistically. There's ways you can trade different amounts of cash for different C-stacks, and the more you trade, the more they cost, and then time is reset to basically bring prices down. There's an interesting economy there, basically, but you can buy a whole manner of things, like weapons, masks, outfits, all sorts, with one or both of these currencies. But there are a lot of varying prices in these things, and it does prevent the problem that you get with Payday 2, where when you've earned a bit of money, you feel like you can buy pretty much anything. Because there's a point, I'm sure we've all reached it in Payday 2, quite early on, where you've earned enough money that you kind of go, well, I've bought all I want now. What now? And I feel like this time they're trying to avoid that, or at least drag it out a bit more before you get to that point. Of course, you'll reach that point, but it will feel more like a natural curve, I feel like, and I do really, really like that. They've mentioned that stealth in this game is designed to feel like Ocean's 11, whilst loud is meant to feel like Heat. That one's not a surprise. That's been an inspiration for Payday for literally the decade the game's existed, so that's no shock to me. They also mentioned things like Mission Impossible for lasers and stealth, that kind of thing. But the overall feel of the game, for me, leading into this, is that it takes the elements of both Payday 2 and Payday the Heist that people loved and combined them into one game. You'll pick it up as I go through this discussion and things I'm talking about. There are definitely key elements from both games that have been incorporated into one here that I really, really like. I really do. And to kind of, as I've said, basically sum it up, it is a really, really fun game. So let's get into it. Let's talk about all the different elements of Payday 3. And let's start off first with menu, loadouts, and weapons. Let's talk about that whole thing as a whole. Now, we don't have footage provided for the menus. There's no B-roll footage to share there, but what I can tell you is it feels very much like a modern Call of Duty game. Not Modern Warfare 2 2022. Thank the great medic bag in the sky, because I absolutely abhor that Netflix streaming service layout they have. It's a more simple one. You got a character in your menu. You can switch between tabs for like loadouts, challenges. Challenges are a thing. Get ready for that. But you can kind of flip between them, do customization. It basically feels like a modern HUD. COD is just a bit of a easy example to compare it to. But you have your tabs for your main menu, you have your skills tab, your loadout, your challenges, and within your customization you can choose your heister, outfit, mask, and gloves. See what I meant when I said that a lot of Payday 2 stuff felt like it was being tested for Payday 3? We all kind of saw it coming, and it is very much the case here. Loadouts are back as well. You can choose loadouts where you can have specific skills, weapons, that kind of thing. But as far as I could see this time around, your outfits don't change between loadouts, which I actually kind of like. You keep the same outfit on, you just change it no matter what you're playing, and your loadout is not quite tied to that. They may change that, but currently, I kind of liked that, felt like it was a little bit better, that's just me. And also, speaking of loadouts very quickly, when you pick your loadout options, skill trees are automatically linked to them now. You know how in Payday 2 you can pick loadout 3 but skill tree 2 and it gets very confusing? That's gone. Whatever loadout you pick has its own skill tree preset to it, and you customize that. Much easier. Tiny little feature, but I love it. Weapons also have their own levels in this game. So if you were a fan of Call of Duty when Black Ops 3 came out and got excited about guns having levels to them, you're going to like this because you earn a fixed amount of XP from playing each heist in stealth or loud, regardless of whether you use the gun or not, by the way, because I completed a heist in stealth using only my pistol, and my primary got extra XP, so that is a thing that happens. But you level the guns up with XP to unlock attachments. That's how the progression works in this game. And I gotta say, it adds even more replayability to Payday, I think, personally, because as I've said, you reach that point in Payday 2 where you buy everything you need and you're done. And you can do it very quickly. You can get the best version of a gun very easily and just not feel like you've got much to do. And that wasn't necessarily a massive problem in Payday 2, but it's nice to see that there's a bit more of a progression curve to it to make Payday 3 take longer to get to the top. It's nice, it's good, but as I'll explain later, you don't need attachments to feel good in this game, and there's a good challenge curve that supports it. It is genuinely really well designed. I'm so chuffed about this game. And as I said, if you stealth a heist with just your secondary, primary levels up too. So if there's a particular gun that you want to try and get some attachments for that you don't want to use without them, bring them in some stealth, just use your secondary and you'll get it leveled up. And as you'll find out later, it's pretty easy to bring any gun along with you, regardless if you do stealth or loud. It's very good. The primaries are assault rifles, shotguns, SMGs, and LMGs, and secondaries are just handguns. We haven't got 3 weapons like Payday the Heist, but like Payday the Heist, we have a slot designed just for pistols. It's just that that's your secondary slot, which, can I just say, I adore. SMGs are a cool class, but I didn't need them to be secondary. Have all the big boys be the primary classes. They're good. Always having a pistol just feels nice, and there are several options of pistols, so I really like that. But even though I said there's not a third weapon slot, there is an extra thing that is just a little bit cooler, called an Overkill weapon. Now, this one may divide people a little bit more, but Mario actually predicted it when we reacted to the Payday 3 trailer. The piglet grenade launcher you saw in that gameplay reveal, and also the sniper with the thermal scope, are both Overkill weapons. What they are an ultimate style thing you charge by getting kills by playing in loud, and eventually you hit a button, a weapon drops from a helicopter, you pick it up, and you use it for the amount of ammo available. You can drop it on the floor and let other people use it, but currently the piglet grenade launcher and the sniper rifle are the only 2 available. Now, the PC I was playing on, all different PCs had different things unlocked at different times, even though we were max level, because we did get to mess around with quite a lot of it at max level to let us explore, basically. The sniper wasn't available in my build, so I haven't tried that, but the piglet launcher is very, very cool, and what I've heard from other creators is telling me the sniper's just as good. So the Overkill weapons are very, very fun, and might I just say, a nice little way to immortalize the Overkill logo. It seems very much like Starbreeze are pushing the Starbreeze name now and not Overkill. They're kind of leaving that name behind, possibly because of the Walking Dead stuff, but I like that they managed to immortalize the logo by it being part of the HUD with the Overkill weapon. I like that, and I hope that doesn't change, because that was Really cool. In terms of a bit more details on weapons though, when you pick your guns, they have stat bars now as opposed to numbers. This was apparently a hot thing because I know Noli in particular, I was chatting to him, he did not like that it wasn't numbers anymore, it was stat bars, but I'm a simple man. I kind of like just having the bars to compare. I think it's a bit easier, but that doesn't mean you couldn't do both. So maybe Overkill will add numbers in as well and you can choose what shows, or they'll put numbers next to bars, I don't know. But currently it's just stat bars, so we'll see. But the devs did note that there are up to 250 factors that contribute to the bars. So damage is an umbrella term based on a whole bunch of different factors, same for stability, that kind of thing. It's meant to be more of a general summation, and it still encourages you to try out every gun, because even though the stats tell you one thing, the gameplay may give you a slightly different feel. Very, very cool. On top of that, throwables are back, but there's also two categories for them now. There's general throwables, your grenades, your throwing knives. There's also tools, which are your stealth things. That can be your ECM jammers, that can be a motion sensor, that could be a portable camera that you can chuck anywhere, even on the back of a civilian, which Andreas did in front of us as a demonstration, and you could choose the camera on the back of a civilian who was just running away. Throwables do break on impact now. The environments, like throwing knives, you have to hit an enemy to pick it back up, although some skills will allow you to pick it up regardless. But I thought it was interesting that you had a few more options now, a few more bits of customization. I really, really like that. I also realised going into this that I'm just throwing information at you all, so I do apologise for that, but there's a lot to talk about here. Armour has bars now, by the way, so there's not an armour system where it constantly regenerates. You kind of have chunks of armour that you have to pick up from an armour bag to recharge. Armour bags are useful. Beautiful, but also there's a few different ways you can get it back. There's some regeneration possibly at play, and also picking up armor pieces. So there's armor plates and health now, a bit of both, and it kind of modernizes the combat a little bit. Additionally, ammo bags now also combine ammunition and throwables and run on a charges system like the throwables bag, so when you use an ammo bag, you'll also get throwables at the same time. But that's everything on menu, loadout, and weapons, so let's talk a little bit about skills, because that's a big thing that I know people want to hear about. Let's just go right off the bat and say perk decks are gone, as are a lot of the skills that are very, very crutch-worthy. I say a lot because I didn't have a whole heap of time to play. Overall, Partners had 3 or 4 hours in total. I spent some of that time doing the Andreas and Almir interviews, so none of us have really had a super high-depth investigation, but I've had a little less and just had to talk to people. But from what I can see in the skills, there's no Inspire, no Swan Song, nothing that feels like you have to get this skill to do well loud, or at least to feel like you've got an appropriate build. Skills have gone back to feeling like you can pick anything in any combination and not have to rely on specific things to do well, and it's beautiful. Perk decks are gone. Instead, they've incorporated perk decks into the structure of skills. What we have currently is an arrangement of skill lines, almost, each one aligned in a row. You have the base skill, which you then research to get more skills alongside it, and research comes from XP, which you get from completing heists. It's very confusing, some of this, to go into this much detail, so obviously in the comment section, if anything doesn't seem clear, just let me know and I will clarify it. But basically, you pick your base skill, you research and unlock the extra skills. But the good thing is, it's not like a skill tree in Payday 2. You don't have to pick each skill to pick the next one, pick the base, and then you can pick any after it in that row. So you can just go for the things that you want. Very, very well done. There's also like a big skill at the end when you finish each row to get you a bit of an extra reward. You don't have to pick that either, but that's quite cool. And as for basic and ace, that only applies to the core skills of each tree. So most of them are just a pick a skill, job done. Not everything can be aced anymore, but I do really, really like that. So the structure of it is far more interesting. The only issue I have is the layout of the UI. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but right now, I think it's just a little bit ugly. You can't really scroll through things very easily. It's a lot of symbols and things that just kind of get lost amongst each other. I would like a bit more design in the UI to make it look a bit more user-friendly, personally. That's just my thoughts. Again, I know it's weird saying this because there isn't any footage, but that's just my personal feedback on that. But speaking of skills, there's one big thing that I do need to talk about, and it might get cheers from some people, it may get crying from others. Ladies and gentlemen, dodge is gone. Dodge is no longer a thing in the game. Instead, you have 3 buffs that can trigger based on certain events, such as headshots, but these are skill dependent. Certain skills will unlock them in certain ways. You've got Grit, which reduces the damage you take. You've got Edge, which increases the damage you deal. And you've got Rush, which increases your movement speed. Those 3 things, and they are earned based on things you do. So, for instance, I had a skill build when I was playing the bank heist, where every time I got a headshot, I would get a brief increase in movement speed, and it could stack. If I kept getting headshots, I'd keep getting the movement speed increase. It wouldn't keep going to 10%, 20%, 30%. It would just reset the timer and give me more movement speed. So it's not a massive crutch, but it's something cool that you get if you are someone who lands a lot of those headshots. So this system works a little bit better, and because you've got more armor-dependent gameplay, I feel like dodge has just been eliminated from the equation to make things easier. It's not are you running an armor or a dodge build, it's just you're running a build that will work in both stealth and loud, because a lot of it does overlap, and that's very good as well. We will get there. But yeah, so dodge is gone, no one's to specify that. But with all these skills, you can customize very good builds still. Just because there aren't crutch skills doesn't mean there isn't a wide range of flexibility, because there is. One dev told us that they managed to make a 3-shot dozer build, because dozers are tough in this game, but it suffered with swarms of enemies. So if you have a lot of enemies coming at you, your build doesn't work as well. So it feels that they've gone back to some of the original Payday 2 vibe, where you are making very set specific builds for certain things, which I really like. So that's very, very good. Those are all the things I have to say on skills. So let's move on to Heists now. In terms of Heists, we were told there would first off be a tutorial when you launch the game that would come in 4 stages. It would talk about combat, casing mode, masked stealth, and crowd control. And if you're thinking casing mode and masked stealth being 2 tutorials sounds odd, don't worry, it's as good as it sounds, believe me. But in terms of actual heists, Payday 3 is going to launch with 8. Now, I'm not going to lie, when I heard that, my heart sank a little bit, because I was hoping we'd get at least double digits here. If you've been on my streams, you'd have heard me say that I was hoping we'd get at least 12. Payday the Heist had 6 at launch, Payday 2 had 12 at launch. However, what I will say now is if the heists are as good as the 2 we played, you won't notice that there's 8 nearly as much as you would in Payday 2 or something like that, because Payday 2 had quite a few small heists. These feel much more like they've got depth, identity, they're unique, you can explore a lot, you can do a lot, and as far as I'm concerned, it seems that you might be able to stealth all loud most of them. That's not been confirmed, but hopefully that's true, because it feels very much like the Payday 2 revival stuff, where there's always that option, so fingers crossed. But we played 2 maps, as I said. No Rest for the Wicked, which is a branch bank, and Under the Surface, that's the art gallery mission, both of which can be done in loud or stealth. The branch bank, No Rest for the Wicked, has 2 floors and a rooftop, and also a very interesting feature of cash with die packs. That's one of the biggest things that's changed here. You can have cash where when you get into the vault, die packs will trigger, and if you don't know what they are, when the timer runs out, they will pop, and the cash will be covered in die. Now, there is a bit of difference here between myself and the partners. Some partners reported that when the die packs went off on their bags, they couldn't even loot them. When I played, I could, but they were worth far less value, so that might be a kind of a thing they're testing different ways. It may be that once they get die packs on, you can't loot them. I personally hope what I had, where they have less value, is the one they use, because it would be better to just loot something rather than nothing, personally. But an interesting bit of an edge to add to the gameplay, and if you play solo, you won't get all the die packs set off, which does mean that they feels like they're trying to encourage more teamwork here, more team play, which is fine in one way, but I do like my solo stealth, so we'll see. I guess they're just trying to make it so that you don't get tons of money by playing on your own. It doesn't feel easier to pass without having a team. There's also thermite to get into the vault loud, whereas in stealth, you have a keypad that you type in the code onto, and you also get a manager and shove their eyes against the screen to scan them. More details on stealth and loud mechanics will come later in the video, though. Let's also talk about Under the Surface, which is a large art gallery with, once again, 2 floors and a rooftop. This one surrounds mobile phones. They're hidden across the map in toilets, in certain rooms, managers' rooms, all this kind of thing, and you will scan them to pick up QR codes, and then you use those QR codes to get into specific rooms in the art gallery. You get a code, you open a specific door, but on top of that, there are side objectives within each room. So say you were looking for art piece from designer number 2, you'd need to maybe get a flash drive to unlock that piece to get the art out. So it's not just about getting in there, it's also about cracking, getting into the actual containers themselves, which just adds a bit more flexibility, a bit more depth, and there's more to do. Some people may think there's too much going on, but from what I've played, I do think that it's quite fun and in-depth to explore and get used to it. And I'm really, really liking it. So that's my vibe on Under the Surface. Is a very rough summary. Again, you'll see gameplay to explain this in a little bit more detail. Both of these heists can be stealthed and played in loud, and they give a clear indication that each heist will have identity and a lot to them. And that's why I'm thinking that 8 heists isn't quite so bad, because there are no 4 stores here. There's no mall crashes. There's big, in-depth heists. I want every heist to feel like the big bank, and if the others are the same size as this, they're going to pretty much feel like that. And I should also just note in passing, because you may hear her voice occasionally when you're seeing the B-roll footage, our new voiceover guide is Shade, a woman. Don't know who she is, don't know anything about her. I think her voice performance is very, very good, but there's no explanation as to where Locke is in this situation, so maybe he'll pop up later, maybe he won't. I hope he will. I really like Locke, and Ian Russell's been a very good ambassador for the brand. I know that people have argued that doesn't mean they should get a role in Payday 3 because of that. Fair enough, I agree. But I think Locke's a cool character and I'd like to see him incorporated, so we will see. But as for right now, I do like Shade. I think she is quite cool. So there's that. That's talking about the heist, though. Let's talk now about stealth. Now, stealth, there is a lot to say, purely because stealth is the biggest change for me personally. And as someone who thrives in stealth, I cannot tell you how happy I am from playing this. I've written so much down here. So, to me, stealth is where Payday 3 peaks. It's nothing like Payday 2 stealth, despite having some similarities, like pages. They are back, even though I wasn't the big fan of them. I think they've been done better here. But it just feels so much more fun, more in-depth, more satisfying, and just runs a lot nicer. I really like it. And there's also a very clear thing to me that making the tiniest of failures doesn't screw you up anymore. There's also just a really nice transition between stealth and loud, a very natural progression, where if you do mess it up, you can adapt and go on the fly with loud. So let's start off with stealth runs in particular. You have public areas, private areas, and secure areas in a heist map. Public areas, you can just wander. Make a bit of social activity with the civilians, get up in guards' faces. Nothing that you do will be suspicious because you're just walking around and exploring the area. The only thing you can't do in case mode in this game is jump. You can do literally anything else without any skills, which is very good. You then have your private areas, and not those ones get your head out the gutter. If you go in a private area, you can still wander around, but you're not allowed to be back there. So if you're spotted by a guard, he will walk up to you and take you back into a public area. He won't open fire. He'll spot you, make you stand in a specific area until he comes over to you and ask you to escort him, or get escorted basically, back into a public area. And you can do that as many times as you want. So you can keep wandering, keep getting caught, and keep coming back out. If the camera sees you, a guard will just come to you, take you away. But while you're doing so, keep an eye out on their backs because they can have key cards hanging off their belts that you can grab. Do you see what I mean with how much better stealth is? There's so many cool things to this, and that's just scratching the surface, because another thing is there's no detection risk. When I found this out, I honestly just kind of went a bit nuts, because detection risk is gone. You can bring any gun, any armor, anything, and you will be spotted at the same speed. Some people may hate that. I know Mortimer's probably crying about not being able to do 75 detection risk heists anymore, but trust me, I was in the room with him. He seemed quite happy regardless. That's what I'm saying about it being a nice transition to loud. If you get caught, you can just have a really good build ready. As long as one of your guns has a suppressor, run with whatever you want, and you can have a really good time. So there being no detection risk kind of offsets the fact that there's, the private areas where you can get escorted out. It's only those secure areas where you're up for a bit more danger. And in them, by the way, if you sprint, guards will hear you and try and track you down. That's how search comes into it as well. From laws in the map, you can set off speakers and guards will go investigate. If you sprint in a secure area, they'll hear you and follow you. The camera sees you, guards will come to try and find you. There's so much here, man. It's crazy. But the biggest thing for me is expanded mask-off gameplay, because in my stealth of the branch bank, because let me tell you what I did. I did one loud playthrough of the branch bank, one loud playthrough of the art gallery, and one solo stealth of the bank, and it took me 2 goes to do it, but I was on normal difficulty. But I did half of the solo stealth with my mask off. I went up on the roof, had a fiddle round, got some security shut down, went down to the vault, pulled a certain cable, and I only had to mask up to get the manager to throw him against the vault to get him to scan his eyes and put the keypad in. That was when I needed to mask up. I could do everything else before it without putting a mask on. Can I just emphasize how amazing that is? Because it's just phenomenal. I'm so happy about that. You can't demask, which I know people quite wanted to, but because of the expanded mask-off gameplay, I don't think you need that feature. And there's a good element of with and without the mask just as is. It just feels like nearly everything is possible, even whether you haven't got a mask on or whether you have. It just feels really, really nice, and I like that. And while you're wandering around, there's also plenty more entry points with more options. So you can have lockpicking, which feels very much Raid World War II-esque, but you've also got things like cracking safes, which in itself feels very much like Red Dead Redemption 2. You can also open and shut windows. You may need to blowtorch seals to get them to open. You can even close doors. I mentioned about laws already, drawing guards into certain areas prevent you killing them, but if you need to, you can take guards hostage, or you can take them down with a Hitman-style execution. And from what I've heard, there's a very grisly sound effect. Now, I didn't hear this because when I was doing my solo stealth, I turned around at one point and realised 3 of the devs were just watching me do it. So I took my headphones off to talk to them and I did a takedown, didn't hear it. But Noli, again, informed me that the sound effect is very loud snap. So, like in your Hitman, Starbreeze, I appreciate it. Additionally, taking out cameras does not make guards go out searching for them anymore, because in Payday 2, I'm pretty sure if you take a camera out, sometimes guards will go over and investigate, and when they see the cameras bust, they'll call for backup, and it's just very annoying. It's why I don't touch cameras when they're not indestructible. In this game, guards will not go towards a camera if it's broken. If it's in their line of sight and they see it's broken, they will still sound the alarm as normal. But if you shoot the cameras out in the back area of the bank and take care of all the guards in that area, it does not matter that you destroyed the cameras. No one will do anything about it, which is one of the easier things in stealth, but I also really like it because, like I said, it's about finding a balance. Some things are easier, some things are harder, and that I really, really, really like. But also, if you just want to destroy the cameras, you can just loop them, and in this game, looping cameras is permanent. You can choose, I think, 2 or 3 cameras, may change based on difficulty, but you can hack into the cameras. When you hack into a camera, you can pick any camera to look at, but you can also loop specific cameras permanently, so they don't cause you any trouble, and you don't have to destroy them, therefore alerting guards in the area. Very, very, very nice. Like that a lot. I mentioned earlier about pages though, so let's touch on that very briefly. Pages are back, and once again, it's 4 before the alarm goes off. 4 on normal and hard, 3 on very hard, and 2 on overkill. They're your 4 difficulties. So pages reduce if you get to a higher difficulty. That's what I'm saying about things getting more challenging. So just because I did my solo stealth second go on normal, doesn't mean I'd be even close on overkill. So just to put that out there, there is, like I said, a good difficulty curve, but I'll touch on that later. But you can answer pages while moving bodies. I killed a guard, picked him up, slung him over my shoulder, and started walking. Then the alarm went off. The radio alarm went off. I had to pause on the space to answer it. You couldn't move while you were answering it, but what you do is you use your phone to respond to the radio in about 2 or 3 second interaction. When you're done, you then speak the pager line, and while they're speaking the pager line, you can just move the body around. I only heard 1 pager line when I was playing, and it was Hoxton saying he was eating beans on toast. So we may be going a bit more gritty and realistic, but not completely, because we still got the Mimi pager lines. But I do think there's actually some prevention here to stop voice lines cutting each other up and overriding each other, because when Shade was talking and I was answering a pager, I never heard a pager line. It's almost like they just removed the line because Shade was talking and they didn't want Shade to be cut off by a pager, or vice versa. If that's the case, very good forward thinking. Like that a lot. Sad to not hear all the pager lines all the time, but for the sake of feeling more absorbed in the game, I do really like that, so that was cool. And finally, last thing to know about stealth, and this does apply to Loud as well, but you can ping things all over the area now. You don't have to just ping guards and cameras, you can ping locations, anything like that. There are no current sounds for pointing out things like ammo bags, doctor bags, that kind of thing. I think the devs may be trying to do that later, we'll soon find out, but you can ping guards and cameras as normal, but also point to locations. So if you want to show a teammate where to go in stealth, you can ping it. Same in Loud, so I also really like that. But that's my overall summary of stealth, which I think in itself was probably a massive chunk of the video. So let me just say, stealth is perfect. Having the public, private, and secure areas, having the cameras work slightly differently, having the ability to lure guards, be escorted by guards, the way pages are done, the way you move bodies, no body bags anymore, you just pick them up and throw them around. They're just really, really, really good, and I like them a lot. So stealth overall is a phenomenal experience. A phenomenal experience. I love it. But now let's talk about Loud. Now, as I said already, it feels like a much more natural progression between stealth and Loud in this game. It's almost like it's part of your gameplay loop. You'll always start in stealth, and then if you mess up, you go into Loud. And because of the presence of things like the negotiation phase, it does feel like there's a very cool, smooth transition. It's not that binary thing of, you failed stealth, well now it's Loud, get ready for a full assault. It kind of moves into the two. And like I said, because there's no detection risk and you can bring any guns, you can basically just run a Loud build in stealth and adapt on the fly. As long as you got one suppressor on your gun to make yourself at least semi-secure, you're good. Doesn't even have to be a shotgun, because shotguns can't ragdoll people anymore, which you don't need to in this game, you genuinely don't. So you can make a really good build, and then if you have some reason to fail stealth, because like I said, you've got several chances to redeem yourself now, whether it be sorting out cameras or being escorted out by guards, that kind of thing. When you go Loud, you don't feel forced to restart anymore, and I really like that. I really, really do. But anyway, Loud in itself feels similar to Payday 2. That's why it's not my biggest thing, the way stealth is, but it does feel more refined. For one thing, spawns are massively reduced. Enemies feel more powerful and smarter as a result, so they are more tactical, but you just don't have endless swarms of them. You don't have a corridor with 30 cops that you have to spray an LMG along to kill them all. No mercy events like that are just completely gone from the game. There's more tactical gameplay here with cops, but there's still a good amount, so you still have to deal with a wave of law enforcement in that same sense. And it only gets more challenging on higher difficulties. But hostages play a big part in that gameplay, because if you could tie up your hostages and move them around or pick them up, you can use them as meat shields, and if you do, cops will try and adapt around that. They will not shoot you as much because you've got a meat shield in front of you, but you can throw them to the cops in the negotiation phase to try and trade for extra time for the assault starts. If you even shoot a single cop while doing so, it will just auto start the assault, so bear that in mind. Or you can hold on to the civvies. In a bank, you've got loads of them, so you could do both here, and trade them for teammates, for ammo, for armor, first aid kits, things like that. You can do all sorts of things with the civvies, and it's very, very cool. Again, that adaptability and the way that cops just behave around them is so good. They don't throw grenades into a room full of civilians because they kill them. Cops don't enter the building in as vast amounts when there's civvies in the building because they have to bear in mind that there are civilians around you. It feels like the cops are considerate of the environment. Let's talk about the enemies, because they have new abilities, there's new types, and also a rename. So, here are all your special enemies. You got your shields. They're pretty much the same as normal, except they've got a breakable window pane you can shoot through now. If you shoot it, cops will try and back the shields up to try and stop you from killing them. There's some tactical things applied there. Really like that. Tasers are gone. Just kidding, they got a new name. They're called Zappers now, and they have the special ability to plant taser mines randomly in the heist. I remember walking into one and getting tased out of nowhere and being very shocked and going, oh, it's a taser mine. So they've got new powers, basically. Really, really like that. You've got Grenadiers. They're a new enemy type. They fire the green toxic gas you've got used to in the Payday 2 DLCs of late, and they will, as you might expect, slowly poison your character. You've then got Sabotage Squads. They work specifically against your current objectives. They may try and turn off power. They may try and put sprinklers on to get rid of the thermite in your bank. These seem to show up more on higher difficulties. I didn't encounter them on normal. Their outfits are apparently very cool, like a mix of black and gold, I think, so they're distinguishable. That's very good. You got your snipers. Not much has changed there. Maybe, I think, a bit easier to deal with in Payday 3, which I really like. I mean, I had a particular assault rifle that I could aim long range with them and get them quite easily. So there's still perches that are a bit harder to get to with certain weapons, but I feel like the snipers have been refined a little bit. They still deal a good chunk of damage, but you can adapt with them a bit better, I think. You've then also got cloakers. Now, cloakers, they have like nightsticks. They'll beat you up. They'll leap across walls. You saw it in the gameplay trailer. They are far more intimidating, although ironically, in both times I saw a cloaker in my gameplay, I shot them in the head twice, so I never got cloaked when playing, so I can't talk too much about being beaten up by them, but I will say their outfits are so much better. They're intimidating, they're cool, I really, really like them, so that's brilliant. And yet, somehow, I completely forgot to mention bulldozers, goodness knows how, but here's your image that I took in the Overkill office, and just to sum them up, they are just absolute monsters, a bit like the Payday 2 bulldozers, but they're more mobile, they're more deadly, and a bit more of a challenge to fight, I think. It kind of goes with the whole vibe that the enemies are smarter, and they're harder to overcome, especially on higher difficulties, and this is no more true than with the bulldozer, a very, very fearsome enemy that leads the pack and makes a very intimidating presence when the cops arrive in loud heists. So very, very much a fan of the bulldozer in Payday 3. And the final enemy, the new one, is the FBI van. For anyone who wanted Captain Winters and the SWAT turret back, they've been combined into one thing. We have the FBI van, which is a Winter-style enemy. When it spawns, there is an endless assault that is triggered, and the FBI van will be hidden somewhere in the map. It's not obvious, you have to hunt it down, but if you destroy the antenna on top of the FBI van, it will get rid of the permanent assault and give you a bit more of a break. There's no turret, so that's gone. Thank goodness. Again, how many times am I going to do Chef's Kisses this video? I don't know. But that's why it's a bit Winters-esque and a bit SWAT turret-esque. It's a van that parks in a certain place, you find it, destroy the antenna, stop the endless assault. So that's your other new enemy alongside Grenadiers and Sabotage Squads. Every enemy that's present feels like they've got a purpose. They've got something to do. They present some kind of new challenge. If they're a returning enemy, they've got something new to them, like the taser mines or the breakable shield panes. If they're new, they've got an interesting ability like Grenadiers or the FBI van. There's so much in this game, and I've been recording for 40 minutes already, and I'm nowhere near the end. Good grief, this is so much to talk about. Because now I want to talk about the difficulties. As I said earlier, you have your normal, your hard, your very hard, and your overkill. Now, across the 4 difficulties, the greatest change here, and by far the best one, came about by accident as I was just playing the game and beating up a SWAT officer on normal. I was hitting them with the butt of my gun, which, by the way, no melee weapons, just gun butts. I was hitting them, and going, this is normal. Why is this cop not dying so easily? And that's when a dev turned to me and said, oh, by the way, enemies have the same health in all difficulties. And before you panic too much, trust me, it's the right amount. It's the right amount. It is a challenging amount. You still play carefully, but normal is basically the difficulty where you've got your enemies, but with not as many modifiers around you. The higher you play, the more intelligent and the more modified your enemies become. You will have things like the spawn cap increasing. You will have enemies being smarter, adapting around you more, and just generally being more of a challenge because they feel like more of a team effort to bring you down on the high difficulties. Overkill feels like Overkill used to in launch Payday 2, which I think is very, very, very cool. Now, as I've said, my playtime was entirely spent on normal, so I can't talk too much about Overkill. I was more focused on looking at the game mechanics, seeing what was going on there. But again, other partners were present who tried these things and had a chat to me about it, and it feels as though Overkill is just a very beautifully scaled difficulty compared to normal. You get more interesting enemies in their behavior, in what they do and how they behave as you go along, and I think that's a really beautiful way to curve the difficulty. The health's the same, but how the enemies present themselves and how you have to behave as a result is different. You may have to take more cover. You may have to be more tactical in higher difficulties. If you get hit more, it's going to be more of a risk because you've got these cops running around in swathes. And I really, really like that. You've also got things like modifiers that will pop in stealth. So if you play on a really high difficulty in stealth, like Overkill, you may get Titan cameras coming back that you can't destroy. There's also talks of a guard who is called the Elite Guard. He wanders around a map, and if you kill him, his page will go off at intervals. You'll have to keep going back and keep answering it because he keeps getting called to ask if everything's okay. So even stealth, it gets more challenging as it goes along. Gone are the days where normal to Overkill stealth are the same, and mayhem to death sentence is the same, but just a bit harder. It's an actual natural curve here, and I really, really like it. And like I said, I haven't got too much to say about difficulties, just that there is a nice curve here, and that you will be rewarded more depending on which difficulty you play, but you won't just immediately jump to Overkill. You'll want to get used to normal or hard and scale it up from there, I think, personally. Some of the veterans among you will probably jump into very hard and Overkill immediately, and if you can do it, then good luck, go for it. But I think it's a really nice open way to introduce people to the game. Like, normal doesn't describe itself as people who are new to shooters, it describes itself as people who are new to Payday 3. That's how it's described in the game right now. So you can be good at shooters, but you want to get used to the gameplay mechanics, try on normal first and scale your way up. Might be a good way to do it and try and ease yourself into how things change. They did mention difficulties being added post-launch, but what they did specify is, first off, they won't go to 8 difficulties like Payday 2. Good. And also, if new difficulties get added, it won't change enemy health. It'll just be thinking of new and interesting ways to adapt to the AI to make them smarter and more challenging. So it may be something they explore down the line, but if they do, it'll be an interesting new challenge and not just, here's a difficulty where they take 5 times more damage. Have fun. Speaking of that progression in enemies, though, let's talk about progression in your game. Now, when you level up, there are 2 key things. There is XP and there is infamy. Now, I talked about XP separately. That only applies to skills. When you research skills, you gain XP by completing heists to get the rest of the skills unlocked. That's separate. Your actual level is called infamy this time. There's no prestige in the game yet. That may be added later down the line, who knows. But you currently have 150 levels that you gain through infamy. But you don't get them by completing heists. Oh no, that's all gone. You get them by completing challenges. You get up to 150 levels by completing a ton of challenges from 3 different categories. I can't remember them off the top of my head. I know one was called Meta, and I think one of them might have been called Combat. Not too sure, but there are 3 different types of challenges, and as the devs have explained, level 70 and 80 is genuinely attainable from just playing the game. You could get to level 70 or 80 in Infamy and not really have looked at the challenges at all, or just completely forgotten or not even noticed they were there. Once you get into that region between 70 to 80, getting beyond that, you're going to want to look at challenges and want to complete them to keep leveling up your Infamy. That's the kind of guide here. You still unlock weapons as you level up your infamy and that kind of thing, so there's a good progression involved here. Just the way it's done is different, though. It's not just mindless completion of heists, it's doing specific things and showing off your infamy as doing infamous things. It may be like some of the more challenging achievements in Payday 2, killing a bulldozer with a sword. Obviously not in Payday 3, because there's no melee weapons, but that kind of thing. Doing interesting feats will be what levels you up to the highest of levels. It may mean that you need to do gameplay in both stealth and loud to complete these challenges and get a high level, which may scare some people, but if you are one of those people out there who preferred stealth or preferred loud, I think in this game you're going to want to try them both again, because you may enjoy both of them a heck of a lot more this time around. So just keep an eye out on your progression there. That's a small thing to mention, but something I thought was quite cool. We're nearly at the end now, don't worry, I'm going to try and avoid having a 1 hour long video, but I want to share some additional points before I talk about my issues. So these are things that didn't really fit a specific category, but I thought needed mentioning nonetheless. So I played personally on controller, everyone else did keyboard. I think the controls across both are quite good. There are a few things that have been swapped. For instance, on mouse and keyboard, it was noted that throwbag and grenade have been swapped, so you need to keep an eye out for something to change there, but there is an option, they've said, to go back to legacy controls like Payday 2. Some things will not be identical because there's more things you can do in the game, but if you want to play like Payday 2, there'll be ways to go about that. There are now dedicated lobby servers. It's not peer-to-peer, you have a lobby server, which means the host can leave and it won't crash the heist. And it also explains why restarting now is a vote, not a host decision. So that's just a cool thing about lobbies. Also, speaking of controls, a lot of civvy interactions rely on pressing or holding the same key, which is something that kind of stretches into issues. But for instance, when I was using a civvy, if I wanted to pick them as a hostage, I would press X, bring them as a meat shield. If I wanted to tie them up, I'd have to hold X. Everything's tied to the same button, and I'm wondering if they should try and change the buttons so that there's different actions for different buttons. That may be something that I'd like them to do, so that's kind of trudging into the issue section, but just worth mentioning. There's also more security firms in the game. Gensec are back, but there's also several others. They're the ones that bring these modifiers with them, such as the return of Titan cameras, the Elite Guard, that kind of thing. On consoles, the game will run between 30 and 60 FPS. Now, I did ask at the time about whether that meant there was a performance and quality mode, and you could toggle between them, like most games nowadays on consoles. I didn't get a confirmation right there. but they're going to look into it and get back to us hopefully soon. I'm presuming if they're quoting 30 to 60, that means you're probably going to have performance mode, 60 FPS, reduced textures, and quality mode, good textures, reduced frame rate. Probably how it's going to go, but hopefully we'll get confirmation on that soon. Also, just with them being an Unreal Engine, things have much better physics now. Bags have jiggle physics on your back. They kind of wiggle around a little bit. Coats, they flap about in the wind in a really cool and inventive way. I remember watching Wolf running down a street and seeing his coat flapping in the wind. Speaking of bags, when you're carrying them, your movement speed seems to be the same. You carry a bag on your back and it's one bag per person as for Payday 2, but your movement speed seems to be pretty much the same. You can still sprint carrying a bag and it doesn't feel to me like there's any difference between types of bag and movement speed. Again, may change down the line, but I kind of like that. You pick up a bag and you're just running with it. Maybe some of the heavier loots will have different movement speeds, but we will see, because we've only played 2 heists, so we don't know what else is coming in that regard. Armor choice does still impact movement speed, though, so bear that in mind. The music in itself feels different to Payday 2. We know now it's composed by Gustavo Cucimio, but he's done it in a different way to Payday 2. It almost feels more reminiscent to Payday the Heist. Interesting vibe that sets it apart from Payday 2, and I really, really like that. So that's very cool. Drills did not pop up once in either of the heists that we played, and from the vibes we're getting, it may not show up at all. Maybe a little bit, but not massively. So maybe the days of constantly having thermal drills, mini drills, all them are gone. That would be very nice. Really like the idea of that. And finally, pre-planning, to me, doesn't seem too clear. You can pick things that can aid you, basically, in the lobby screen, but I didn't get much chance to experiment with it because I didn't have much on offer. Again, the build I had didn't have a lot I could pick through in the pre-planning screen, so that's something I'm acknowledging. There is a pre-planning thing you can do, but I didn't see a map of the heist or anything like that. Just different things you could add in as basically perks or bonuses when you go into a heist from the look of it, so I'm sure we'll get more info on that as time passes. Okay, just to conclude before I get to my overall thoughts, let's talk about a couple of my issues with Payday 3. First off, let's just talk very quickly about the heist quantity, because I mentioned it was a concern. I'm not a big fan that there's single-digit heists, but as I've said, I do think that's offset by the quality of them. Does it mean I wish there were more? Of course it does, but we also haven't played 6 of them at this point. We've only played a quarter of the heists, so I really don't want to have that as a big criticism, because I just haven't played half of them yet, more than half of them. I'm looking forward to being more heists, basically. It's a shame that they're going to have to get the season pass to get more of the heists, but who cares, right? If they're going to be good at the base game, that's what's going to matter the most. People can buy in and get the really good experience to base, and then build it up from there with DLC if they so wish. Fine. The other thing I mentioned earlier was the skills UI. As I said, there's not names for the rows, there's no labels to them. There's just certain rows and there's different icons of different sizes for the base and big skills, then smaller ones. It's just not very intuitive, and I imagine it's something they are working on and improving, so I want to point that out now and just say, hopefully that gets improved. You guys obviously can't see it, I know that, so it's, you know, I'm basically talking to a brick wall there, but that's more for Starbreeze to know, because I know the devs will be watching all of our videos anyway, so they can keep that in mind. Looting is one of the only things in the game that feels identical to Payday 2, which I don't want to make the comparison, because I was going to make a video on this, but I don't need to now that I've played Payday 3, but it's one thing that Crime Boss did better than Payday. I'm sorry, but I'm just going to say it. Looting in Crime Boss is more fun than Payday 3, because in Crime Boss you grab loot in chunks to fill a bag and you can carry 2 bags. It feels a bit more interactive and adaptive. Payday 3 is the exact same. You walk up to a chunk of money, you hold a button, you've got a bag on your back, you move. While it's not necessarily bad, there's no animation, there's no interactivity to the looting, and Crime Boss just showed me you could do that. Now, I did talk to the devs about it, and they are aware that, you know, it does look quite the same, and they want to explore it, but the problem you've got is that adding animations could be broken if you have a skill that improves your looting speed, which is something you can do in skills, but maybe you could just make the animation twice as fast. It may look a bit goofy, but it would just maybe look a bit cooler. So if you honestly don't care about that, fine. It is a nitpick, I will say it, because, I mean, the looting system is not really a major thing to make Payday 3 a bad game if it's not good, but it's just the one thing that glared out to me is, like, this is the thing I'm not as big of a fan of, so that's my big criticism. But speaking of things that stay the same, the other thing that I don't care about as much, because masks have just not bothered me as much in recent years, but the mask system doesn't feel like much has changed. The way you buy your colours and patterns does feel more modern. You pick a specific colour, you pick your pattern, you see your mask, you make it, fine. But the patterns, again, are applied in specific ways. You can't move them around, you can't customize them or anything like that. I know that they probably didn't want to go for a Call of Duty emblem editor where you could put things on top of each other because they didn't want people making, I don't know, SWAT stickers or whatever. Fair enough, but maybe let you just put a pattern on and move it, stretch it, just do that. Don't stack patterns, but just let you mess around with an individual pattern a bit more, just so there's a bit more customization there. Because looking at it right now, I will enjoy Payday 3 to no end, but I won't give a damn about mass customization. I'll maybe put a colour on, but I'm not going to care beyond that, and I'd like more reason to, personally. And the only other tiny thing is floppy bodies. When, like I said, you're carrying bodies, they're not in body bags anymore. When you drop them, they just land at your feet. There's no feel of a physical throw, which I would like. I'd like to be able to throw a body out into a corner, not massively, but just feel there's a bit of oomph behind them. So just, you know, don't let us drop bodies, let them chuck in a direction. I'd like that personally. But that is everything I've got to say about Payday 3. I've been recording at this point for 51 minutes. I imagine I'll be able to shave it down maybe by about 10 because of my, you know, waffling, retaking, that kind of thing. But my overall thoughts, here's what I've said, word for word in my sentence for overall thoughts. If they stick this landing, I won't be going to Payday 2 much. I don't need to. This game feels better than Payday 2 in almost every conceivable way other than my previously listed issues. It's so much fun to play, and I've barely scraped the surface. That's word for word what I've written there. So, what more can I say? In almost every feasible way, Payday 3 takes Payday 2 and also Payday the Heist and just improves on it. Everything feels so much more touched up, everything feels so much more modernized, more fun to do, more challenging, more interesting, and like I said, if they stick this landing, if the rest of the game is as good as what we played, and even possibly touched up more since we played it, like I said, the build was a month old, we have got a cracking heisting game on our hands in September. Let me tell you, folks. I can't wait to get my hands on it again. And I also realised that doing videos like this is going to make you guys keen to play it. So I'm really hoping Overkill cook up the chance for us to do a beta. There was no mention of that in the studio. I need to clarify that right now. Nobody at any point said we're doing a beta. But they did a beta for Payday 2, and this time around, we've talked nearly 3 months early about the game. And I don't know about you, but I really want to get my hands on it again before it comes out. I've had a taste now. I've been bitten by the bug. I really want to get the chance to play it a bit more. So I'm crossing my fingers, I'm crossing my toes, I'm crossing everything that we get the chance to have a beta to try it a bit more. So you guys get to see it, I get to play it again. We all get to talk about it and just build up that hype that little bit more before September. But ladies and gentlemen, that is everything I have to say about Payday 3. There is a lot of stuff to say here. I would also say I would encourage you to watch every other partner who's uploaded a video on this. There's a whole bunch of them that will be talking about it. I know Marion Top Hat in particular is going to do a commentary video, which to me, for the meme man, is kind of crazy, especially considering in the trailer reaction, as a lot of us know, he was very negative. As I said at the time, he was fully within his rights to be so, but literally, I mean, he let me share it. Here's his note. I'm going to put it on screen here. Here's his concluding note in his notes that he sent to me. If that doesn't say it all, I don't know what does. Even he is loving the game. So, get excited. I don't want to be that guy. I'm not someone who encourages tons of pre-orders because I'm personally someone who only pre-orders close to the time. But I'm telling you now, if you said I'm going to pre-order based on this, I genuinely wouldn't blame you. Everything I've played is absolutely flipping phenomenal. I wanted to swear to open this video, but I thought just for sake of ads, I won't do that. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is my full in-depth analysis of Payday 3. Whew, I'm exhausted. I've talked a lot, and it's literally 11:15 at night. I've got a lot of editing to do before this video goes up tomorrow, so I'm very, very excited to get this out and get your thoughts on it. So let me know what you think of everything I've talked about, the good, the bad, and there's a lot to listen to, so please do enjoy it. Maybe go back and watch it in chunks. Don't know why I'm saying this now. You've seen the video if you're watching this bit, whatever. But don't forget, Payday 2 Crude Awakening Heist tomorrow, interview with Andreas on Wednesday, Starbreeze tour vlog with all the photos and kind of partner things on Thursday, and Friday, the interview with Almir Listo. I just can't wait to get all this stuff out. It's going to be a crazy time. But either way, I'm going to wrap this video up here. Thank you all so very, very much for watching. I will see you all very soon, well, tomorrow, with another Payday video. Until then, look after yourselves, stay safe, and I will see you all soon. Thank you for watching.